So we're going to jump back into Richard Morgan Casey's evidence to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, and the Post Office at this point is claiming that they succeeded in the case despite the Horizon issues, and that they're trying to cast some doubt on the relevance of the Horizon issues in the case. Richard Morgan prepares a rebuttal to the defence where Mr. Castleton says Horizon isn't working properly by saying, well, Fujitsu have analysed it and it's fine. The assurances seem to have been provided to Richard Morgan by his instructing solicitor. He's not sure what those assurances are based on. And as far as we can establish, it just could be termed, at the moment, hearsay, because there doesn't seem to be any physical proof other than saying, no, it works. Let's jump into the inquiry.
Can we turn, please, to the way that the case was put on accounts stated and settled accounts? And just go back to paragraph 27 of your witness statement, please, on page 8. You say in the second line, I recall there was a line of authorities in relation to accounts stated and settled accounts. I realised that there was authority for the argument that if Mr. Castleton was tendering his own figures to the Post Office, he was vouching their accuracy. I therefore advise we should realign our pleaded case to take this point, and we should try and establish the true trading position by reference to Mr. Castleton's own documents. And then paragraph 92, please, on page 31 of the witness statement. You've been asked whether there are any other matters you would like to bring to the attention of the chair, and you say you've seen various books, articles and comments that make reference to the Post Office and Castleton case. The general assumption in these materials seems to be that in some way the operation of the Horizon IT system was an issue in the case that led to judgment being given in favour of the Post Office. However, a review of the pleadings, the witness statements and the judgment should provide enough information to confirm that the case in fact turned on Mr. Castleton's own signed books, records and accounts produced by him as the agent of the Post Office.
Based on what Horizon was giving him, which I think we've already agreed and established across all parties.
And that matches what Mr. Dilly told us repeatedly yesterday. He said the Post Office succeeded in its claim in spite of the computer system. It succeeded in its claim on the basis of physical accounting records. Can we just look at the pleadings, please? Starting with LCAS 40190. This is the re-amended reply and defence to counterclaim. And we can see if we go to page 3 and scroll down. It's settled by you. Can you see that? And if we go back to page 1, please, and look at paragraph 3. It's pleaded, with respect to paragraphs 5 and 6 of the defence, Fujitsu services have looked at the claimant's computer system and have confirmed that the losses recorded by the defendant were caused by a difference between the physical transactions that actually occurred and were recorded on the system by the defendant or his assistant as taking place, and the cash in hand that was declared by the defendant relating to those transactions. And accordingly, those losses were not caused by the claimant's systems, software, or hardware. We ought to look, I think, at just what paragraphs 5 and 6 of the defence had said. LCAS 40294. And if we go to page 3, paragraphs 5 and 6, Mr. Castleton had pleaded the defendant repeatedly sought assistance from his managers within the claimant company during the period over which the apparent shortfalls accumulated. No assistance was forthcoming. The defendant avers that any apparent shortfall is entirely the product of problems with the Horizon computer system and accounting system used by the claimant. The defendant further avers that he will be able to demonstrate through a manual reconciliation of the figures contained with the daily balance snapshot documents created by the defendant during the course of his tenure as sub-postmaster at Marine Drive Post Office, which were removed from the Post Office on the defendant's suspension, that the apparent shortfalls are in fact nothing more than accounting errors arising from the operation of the Horizon system. And so Mr. Castleton's case was that the shortfalls were entirely a product of the Horizon system, yes?
That's what he says.
And in the reply in defence to counterclaim, you pleaded that that was denied, that the losses were not caused by the claimant's system, software or hardware.
Yes.
Can you help us on what material that was based?
My instructions.
And where were those obstructions obtained from?
My instructing solicitors.
By what means?
Well, At this distance in time, I can't recall. But
you recall what was pleaded, that Fujitsu had, we better get the wording exactly right.
Yes.
LCAS 400190.
So is he basically saying now we rebutted the claims because somebody told me they were false, and presumably the instructing solicitor was told they were false by the post office? Surely you need a bit more evidence than that.
And paragraph 3. Fujitsu services have looked at the claimant's computer system, etc.
yes.
Again, and appreciating the distance of time, can you recall anything more than that was based on my instructions, which came from my solicitor?
No.
Can we look, please, at poll 306 9801? And if we look at the foot of the page, just scroll up a little bit, just a tiny bit more. There's an email from you to Mr. Dilly of the 8th of November.
Yes.
And then if you scroll up to the top of the page, you'll see he says, I thought it would be easiest, solicitors often say this, to reply in blue below next to your original email.
And of course, we have the benefit of a black and white copy.
Exactly so. So it is doubtless easiest for them. If we scroll down, please, I think we can see from the typescript where you're speaking and he's replying.
Yes, I think my points end with question marks, and then the text after that is
exactly. And I think in the original day would be blue.
Yes.
At what time of day was Castleton suspended? Who arranged for the temporary sub-postmaster to take over? Scroll down, please. Was the sub-post office shut? When was the P242 signed? Did the branch trade? Etc., etc. There's a very wide range of issues upon which you're seeking instructions there, but not the one that I'm asking about.
Yes.
Again, can you recall how that information had been provided?
No.
Namely, that Fujitsu had examined the system.
No.
Well, it's kind of becoming hearsay, really, isn't it? Because there's no written evidence of it. If we took a pessimistic view, we could say someone just decided to say, no, just say it's robust. We've heard that before. Say it works. Say that part of the claim's rubbish. But surely you want something to back it up to build a strong case.
In any event, quite aside from the nice legal point, the reliability of the product of Horizon at least this branch was an issue, or potentially an issue, in the trial.
Potentially an issue, yes. Although if you go back to the defence, you'll have seen that the averment was that Mr. Castleton would be able to establish from the primary figures that they were artificial deficiencies rather than real deficiencies. So his case was based upon the written figures rather than the product of Horizon.
But in any event, would you agree that disclosure had to be given by the post office in relation to the question of, if it possessed such documents, whether such losses were caused by Horizon, irrespective of your legal point?
One would have to look very carefully at the scope of the disclosure obligation and the information that was being sought. Now, at this stage, Mr. Castleton was represented by solicitors, and they no doubt explored disclosure issues with my instructing solicitors, but disclosure was not an issue with which I was involved or upon which I was instructed, as far as I remember anyway.